reunited and it feels so good. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, joined as always by Anthony Ray Bench, and we are reunited.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks.
It's been a couple of weeks. You did. I was actually unavailable. I was out of town. I was in San Francisco, out of town, unavailable, and you did a podcast all by your lonesome. Actually, not all by your lonesome.
Yeah, I was with Matt Kyle, the great Matt Kyle.
Great Matt Kyle, whose knowledge of Transformers stuff knows no bounds.
He was pretty knowledgeable about Fast and the Furious, too.
Yeah, if that's it. Now, if you want to be someone who is knowledgeable about Fast and the Furious, I guess that's something that you could be. It's not something I could ever be, but I'm so glad that Matt and you went to the screening of Fast and the Furious and got to talk about the film.
Have you seen all of them?
I have not seen all the one I actually like the best is the Tokyo Drift.
Really? That's the one that everybody hates.
Everyone hates it, yes, because it doesn't have the original cast. It's like a completely different cast, right? Like I actually like that one because I saw it with my son at a drive-in and we were in my car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And actually Mark Bell, now that I think about it, the former Film Threat editor, he was with us. So the three of us went and saw that movie at a drive-in, watching this film. I think we were drinking beers. My son was not, but we were just sitting around drinking beers and watching that film. So that was a lot of fun.
So is that one of those things where like a lot of movies that I love aren't because of the movie, but because of the circumstances and the people I saw it with? Is that kind of the case?
Oh, that totally fits it. Now that I think about it, it's like, oh my God, yeah, that was like so fun because I was watching a movie about racing cars in a car.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Context in seeing a film, I think, is very important. That's why I think that, it's so important. Publicists want you to see a movie in a theater, right? They want you to see it in the best of circumstances, especially like for indie filmmakers. It's important that an indie film be seen, at a film festival in front of a live audience, on a Saturday night or a Friday night at a premiere when it's sort of a heightened sense of energy, right? Like that actually does affect your experience because I can tell you from my perspective that I have seen movies at Sundance that I thought were amazing. And then I caught them on cable months later and I realized they were shit. They were a lot. It was just a lot of coming of age, dramatic nonsense. So, but at the time I saw it, I really liked it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I have a lot of movies where like I watched them as a kid and watching them as an adult, they don't hold up, but still I like them just because I remember what it was like being a kid and just how it affected me back then.
It's nostalgia. I mean, that's, Star Wars is built on that, right?
Yeah.
Which is Star Wars is all built on your nostalgia for all things Star Wars. So, and speaking of that, I got back from Star Wars Celebration. I hope that you listened to our Star Wars Celebration Film Threat special where I'm not going to talk too much about it. I hope you listened to it. It was our just last episode. And Star Wars Celebration is amazing to me. It's one of the great fan experiences. I mean, I go to a lot of different conventions. And
we both do.
We both do. Yeah, WonderCon and San Diego Comic-Con, Phoenix Comic-Con, Dragon Con,
LA Comic-Con,
LA Comic-Con, yes, all that stuff. So Monsterpalooza, Gallifrey one, it could go on and on. I feel like in a way, like comic conventions have kind of replaced film festivals in some sense because a lot of them now have a film festival element. There's Geek Fest, of course, put on by Bill Ostroff, who does the First Glance Film Festival, which Film Threat just hosted that last weekend. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a whole that sort of fandom is awesome. And what I love about Star Wars Celebration is it's one fandom, right? Mm-hmm. But what I kept running into is people dressed as Batman. They would be like a Batman Jedi or a Batman with armor on,
Really?
Yeah. I know. In fact, from my Twitter, I have a Twitter account where I just tweet about Batman at @BatChrisGore. And I tweeted pictures of all the Batman, people dressed as Batman that I ran into while I was at Star Wars Celebration. So that was pretty awesome.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, but the panels were great. I mean, the problem is they got to fix this. You can't get into these panel rooms, and then you can just go to the Star Wars YouTube channel, and you can watch pretty much most of the panels that happened. And I'm thinking,
Don't fix that. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
But as someone who spent money to go to Star Wars Celebration, I should be able to see those panels. I shouldn't have to watch it on YouTube in my hotel room, which is what I did for the 40th anniversary panel with George Lucas, which I thought was fantastic. They did a little mini tribute to Carrie Fisher, which was incredible.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, but you can see all that content there. I don't want to talk about that too much, but I do want to talk about the trailer for The Last Jedi because that debuted. Mm-hmm. And what did you think?
I didn't like it.
Oh, you didn't like? Why?
Yeah,
I liked it. I like that opening shot where it seems like it's outer space, but it's actually
that was pretty neat.
Glistening off a rock. I thought that was cool.
I don't like how they're pushing the whole, we don't need the Jedi Order narrative. I hate that.
You know. First of all, can I just tell you that's bullshit. That's just like Robin dies this issue. Oh wait, they actually
really
did
think
kill
it's
Robin.
Bullshit?
Yeah, I do think it's total bullshit. I mean, every time, look, they killed Spock and they brought Spock back. Right?
I know, but like everybody's speculating that's this whole gray Jedi thing, and I'm not going to go into what a gray Jedi is.
I think it's a stupid theory.
But I don't like the idea of having Luke kind of try to usher in this whole we need balance in the Force. There needs to be a kind of a balance between the dark side and the light side. No, I think that Luke should be on the light side or the dark side. That's whole, George Lucas even said the 40th anniversary panel.
Right.
He said the whole concept of Star Wars boils down to if you're a good person and you're generous and you're kind to others, you're on the light side. If you're selfish, if you're a jerk, you're on the dark side. And I think George Lucas has spent 6 movies trying to hammer home the idea that there is good people and there's bad people. And yeah, I get that that's kind of a fantasy, because
But what you're saying is there's gray people.
that's what they're trying to get at. I like the idea that Star Wars is pure and there are good guys and there are bad guys. There's nothing in between. And with Rogue One, they're trying to push that, good people are doing bad things for good reasons and good people or bad people are doing good things for bad reasons. I don't like that ambiguity in my Star Wars. I want Star Wars to just be, it's a children's story and children need to, know that there's times to stand up for each other and there's times
All right, so you just didn't like the trailer, right? You just didn't, it didn't grab you? I mean, look, first of all, it's an early trailer. It's a teaser. I don't want to know anything about that movie. I want to go in blank or I don't, but I think the trailers, they've done a good job of not telling you much of anything.
But they teased a story. They did tease a story, and I appreciate that because if you go back and watch the Star Wars The Force Awakens teasers, it's just random shots, no context. I think this one had enough context to intrigue me.
Okay. All right. Well, I enjoyed it for what it was. I would like to see a good Star Wars movie.
Yes,
I have not loved a Star Wars film in a very long time, so I would like to see that happen. But here we are, wasting precious minutes of digital space talking about Star Wars when we should really be talking about other films. We've seen a bunch of movies since the last time we spoke. So let's plow through them. But there's one in particular I really want to talk about because it's something that everyone listening to this podcast now can see. Because it's actually airing on television. And I happen to get an early peek at this movie, but that'll be the last one I talk about. Do you want to kick it off or do you want me to kick it off? Go for it.
You kick it off.
All right. I saw Weiner. I saw the documentary on Anthony Weiner, who, Anthony, we've all seen his Weiner,
Was it a very revealing film?
It was First of all, the documentary is about his failed run for mayor for the city of New York and how all of these new allegations came to light as he was running, and he decided, I'll have this documentary made about me. I mean, the guy is a complete narcissist. There are moments in this documentary, he gets off on being filmed. He gets off on you can tell he's just really, you can see how much he loves himself on camera. There's a scene in this documentary where he, first of all, it begins with him questioning what a stupid idea it is to do a documentary about this, because I don't think he thought that new allegations were going to come to light while he was running. I think the filmmakers got lucky. They thought, well, maybe, he's an up and comer in the Democratic Party. Someone, had this controversy never erupted with pictures of him tweeting and sending direct Twitter messages and texting young women. I mean, he's married with children, and he was sending pictures of his wiener. Unfortunate name, but to women, and
appropriate.
Yeah, and so he could have been someone with presidential, national political aspirations, but that was all completely derailed by his own actions, right? Like he did this stuff stupidly. He's married to a beautiful wife, Huma Aberdeen, who is. I'm reading this new book actually about Hillary Clinton it's called Shattered, and it's about Hillary Clinton's doomed campaign for the presidency, and Huma Aberdeen really plays a big part of this book. And she's basically Hillary Clinton's right-hand woman. I mean, running Hillary's schedule. If you want access to Hillary, you have to go through Huma. So Huma is Anthony Weiner's wife and very connected to Hillary. So when all this stuff came to light, look, it derailed the presidential election when more emails from Anthony Weiner, came to light, and it's horrible. But the documentary, you see there's this one part where he's watching a video online of himself on an MSNBC show where he got into it with one of the hosts, and he's watching it with delight, and Huma's looking at him going like, how can he enjoy this? He's, no matter what, he comes off as a jerk, He kind of shut down the host, and it was Lawrence O'Donnell, actually. And he shut down the host. He was all proud of himself, and Huma's looking at him like, you could see like that was the moment where she said, what the hell am I doing with this man? I mean, she stuck it out through the election where he lost, no spoiler, but it's an incredible documentary. I'm just now got around to seeing it, but wow, it's just literally capturing lightning in a bottle with what happened. So if you enjoy politics, you enjoy this sort of reality circus show that is now our modern politics. Yeah. I cannot recommend Weiner enough. I highly suggest you go out and you see Weiner.
And it's going to be on television?
No, you can see it. Weiner. Look it up. Documentary.
I don't want to Google search Weiner.
Yeah, in your Google history, look up Weiner. I don't know. It's probably on Netflix. I saw it on a flight. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I saw it on a flight. I was very excited. I was on American Airlines flight, not United. And what was so great is, and I think I posted this on my Instagram at that Chris Gore. I posted a photo. American Airlines said, "This film has not been edited. If this offends you, basically, like, too bad." It was awesome. Like, they were showing movies unedited. So I really appreciated it. It's not like there was porn on the flight, but there were some R-rated movies. And so that was great. Perhaps they're listening to their customers. Please don't edit the movies. So that was great. What have you seen lately?
The first movie I want to talk about is a movie called Hello, My Name is Doris. It's available on Hulu, actually. It's kind of an older movie. I think it was originally...
Well, it came out last year, but Sally Field is in this film, right?
Sally Field.
Sally Field, Oscar-winning actress.
Yep.
And I think I recommended that you see it because I heard her interview on Howard Stern talking about this movie, and Howard Stern was raving about it. So already that's a resounding endorsement. But what did Anthony Ray Bench think?
I loved it. I loved it a lot.
And this movie's not for you. Sally Field, older actress, right? This is not the movie where you go, oh, what am I going to see? Fast and the Furious or My Name is Doris with Sally Field?
To be fair, given those two options, I would see Hello, My Name is Doris.
Okay.
Hello, My Name is Doris is about Sally Field's character, Doris. Her mother just passed away, and she lived with her mother for, all her life. And like, they both have kind of this tendency to hoard. Their house is in just squalor and disarray. And she attends this self-help seminar, and she is kind of, I guess... What's the word I'm looking for?
I have no idea. I'm not in your brain.
she's kind of propelled into pursuing this younger coworker. And she does things like she creates a fake Facebook profile to kind of figure out like all the things that he likes. And it sounds super creepy, and it kind of is.
She ends up banging a younger dude. Is that what you're trying to tell me? If I can just cut to the chase.
Do you want me to spoil it for you?
I'm
not going to spoil it.
Don't spoil it, but it's
good.
This is one that you have the DVD, so I need to get that back from you.
But it's on Hulu.
Is it on Hulu?
Yeah.
Yeah, but can I just get the DVD? Because I hate Hulu.
Really?
Can I just say I don't like Hulu?
Yeah.
Because they have commercials. I pay for it. I should get no commercials. You know what's a great value is Netflix or I think I talked about this in a previous podcast, but I am untethered. I had DirecTV for almost 20 years. I had DirecTV because of NFL Sunday Ticket, because I like the DVR options on DirecTV. I'm finally untethered. I use the PlayStation View on my PS4, or I watch it on my Roku box, and I love it. And I got Showtime. So that, because I love the show Billions. I know this is a movie podcast, but the show Billions is fantastic. And then I'm binge watching Twin Peaks in anticipation of the new Twin Peaks, which I believe premieres end of May. So I have the Showtime app. Now I'm just all about subscribing to apps, but I don't need the Showtime app forever. I mean, I'll watch Billions, I'll watch Twin Peaks, I'll probably unsubscribe, then I'll resubscribe when it comes back. Like, I don't know. I love these apps now. It's kind of a la carte. When they lock you in on these, whether it's cable or satellite, it's really not great for consumers. And I love the idea that I can kind of a la carte go, Netflix or this or whatever. And you get way more entertainment for your dollars. So, and I love that Netflix is so supportive of indie film and comedians and social issue documentaries. So when I give money to Netflix, I feel like it's actually going towards a good cause, even if I don't watch it a whole lot that month. I feel like Netflix supports the types of films that I would like to see made, which is great. Hulu, I just don't. It seems like they just care about money.
Yeah, but Hulu is the only streaming service that I subscribe to that has TV shows. So that's how I get my TV. And
wait. Netflix, I'll bet, is going to make a deal. And if that happens, Hulu is done. Because I just don't think the original programming. The only thing I watched was that one, that show. The series was 1963.
Mm-hmm. The one with James Franco?
James Franco goes back in time to stop, the JFK assassination, but then things go horribly wrong. And I believe it's based on a Stephen King story. It's fantastic. That I thought was well worth it. Yeah. But I really haven't seen anything else that has grabbed me on Hulu original programming.
Well, I'm not talking about the original programming. I'm talking about like I can watch shows like South Park and stuff without getting cable. And that's why I use it. That's why I see Hulu as valuable.
All right, fine. On this, we disagree.
Anyways, another thing I really liked about it is I get extremely weirded out by characters that I perceive as being more socially awkward than I am. Because I think takes a lot. Yeah, I'm pretty socially awkward.
Yeah, you are.
But she is super, like, everything she does is just really cringeworthy. And you know how a lot of indie films
I almost thought you said indie MILFs.
Yeah, indie MILFs.
You know a lot of indie MILFs? What?
You know how a lot of indie films kind of rely too much on quirkiness? Like, you have this character that's an oddball and then acoustic guitar soundtrack.
Right.
It serves a purpose because you see her evolution from being socially awkward to kind of making friends. And it's funny because she dresses like a hipster, and that's the first thing I thought was like, oh gosh, she dresses like a hipster. And she becomes friends with hipsters because they like her style, they like the way that she dresses. It's a good unconventional love story with a really cool ending. You know those endings where you can kind of make up your own conclusion. One that pops to mind is Lost in Translation. Right. You don't know what he says, but you can kind of...
So you're saying it's an ambiguous ending?
Yeah, absolutely.
She doesn't blow up the Death Star at the end?
No.
She doesn't blow up the second Death Star at the end?
No.
She doesn't blow up Starkiller Base at the end?
It's more of like her approaching the Death Star, and then Darth Vader shows up behind her, and then fade to black.
Great, you just ruined it. Hey, I just realized there are like 3 Star Wars movies that end with something blowing up at the end that's a very large weapon. That's sort of lame.
You can also argue that episode 1 does it too.
Episode 1 kind of does it too. Oh my God! We are not derailing back into Star Wars?
It goes back to Star Wars.
I already get hate on social media from people that like your film threat. You should be. Everyone wants to tell me what I should be doing with film threat. This is
film threat, not indie film threat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's film. Celebration of all things.
Here's the thing. My justification is. Film Threat just offers a different take about things, and we also champion indie movies that you don't, you're not going to, some of these other movie websites. I'm not going to name them by name because I actually like them. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of these other sites, they don't support indies. They're just all about Marvel and Star Wars and DC movies and bitch about that. We try to, I think that it's important to have a broad palette, just like I like my big dumb Star Wars Marvel blockbuster tentpole Hollywood movie, and I like indie stuff like My Name is Doris, and so F that. I mean, just like every once in a while I like In and Out I actually think is great, and then every once in a while I have a craving for a Big Mac. I just do. I'm sorry, Morgan Spurlock. The last time I ran into Morgan, which was at San Diego Comic-Con, I asked him if he's ever had McDonald's, since he says absolutely not. He has not. And not even had a craving for it at all. But about once a month, I'll have this craving for I think I want a Big Mac. I just kind of want a Big Mac. I do.
I've been around you when you had that craving.
Oh my God, that happened to us when we were going to a movie. We were headed to a movie. I'm like, I heard they have a Big Mac, but it's smaller. And so we went. There's no, they did.
It was King Kong.
They introduced, we saw Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
But they have this new Big Mac that's it's a small version of the Big Mac, and then there's a larger version of the Big Mac. But I have not had the larger one yet.
Because I've heard it's the size of a plate.
The point is this.
Yeah.
To bring it full circle, you need to have balance.
Absolutely. I think
the light side, the dark side. You need to. No, I'm serious. There needs to be balance. You need to watch your dumb popcorn movies along with your Weiner documentaries and your My Name is Doris small indies.
Yeah, I think the big budget movies are kind of everybody's gateway into film.
Right,
they're the most accessible.
Gateway, but you have to. It's sort of like when you're a kid and you'll just only eat certain types of kids' foods.
Yeah.
Then you get a little. And as you age, you have your palate broadens and you're looking for different types of food. You want a different kind of food experience. Although I'm not particularly a foodie, I actually don't care. Food is not. I'm when it comes to entertainment, that's my foodie. I'm a movie. I'm a movie.
Or to further my analogy, there comes a point in time where you have to put away the weed and start shooting heroin.
Yeah. I don't like that analogy, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. All right. I now I really want to see it, but I want that DVD because I will not sign in. Okay. Here's what I'll do. Give me your Hulu password and I'll use your Hulu account.
Okay.
All right. But I'll give you my Showtime account.
That works fine.
So then you can watch Twin Peaks.
Do you have Stars?
I don't have Stars.
Oh, damn.
But
I really want to see
Showtime.
I want to see American Gods. Showtime works.
Well, maybe I can just subscribe to it when it comes out.
I think it already came out.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Well, anyways, okay, well, let's not derail into that. More movie talk. Okay,
sure.
So I saw another film that I really wanted to see when it initially came out, and I know I'm playing catch up. We're jumping all over the place.
It's been 2 weeks, folks.
Yeah, but if you're tuning into this podcast to listen to I want to hear about the latest movies opening in theaters, we're not there yet. We're going to get there at some point, but right now we're really just trying to get a podcast out once a week, which has actually proven difficult with travel and schedules and whatnot. But I saw this.
We've done
film.
A good job.
We've done all right. Yeah. So Joel Edgerton wrote and starred in this film called The Gift with Jason Bateman that is freaking weird. Talk about awkward. I think this would be based on what you said about My Name is Doris, this actually kind of fits this. Because Joel Edgerton's character sees Jason Bateman, just runs into him randomly. Jason Bateman's and his wife are relocating to a new neighborhood. He kind of moves back home, starts working for this new company, and he runs into randomly a childhood friend, right? Played by Joel Edgerton, who's a weirdo, right? He's
in the movie, not in real life.
In the movie, yes, okay, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the character is a weirdo as played by Joel Edgerton, who, worth noting, played young Owen Lars in both episode 2 and episode 3 of Star Wars to bring it again. We keep circling back. We cannot escape.
No.
So Joel Edgerton.
I'm happy with that.
Joel Edgerton runs into Jason Bateman and his wife, strikes up, sort of rekindles the friendship, but you can see Jason Bateman's kind of like he was a weird kid. And it seems like a by-the-numbers thriller. And I don't... See, if I get into what the twist is, it's going to ruin it. And what was great about every trailer I saw for this movie, it did not ruin the twist. So I am not going to ruin the twist. The ending is freaking amazing. The point is this is a type of movie we've seen before. When you see the trailer, you're going to go, I've seen a million suspense thrillers like that.
That's exactly what I said when I saw the trailer.
Yeah, except you're wrong because you didn't see the movie. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, if I told you what the twist is, you'd think it's awesome, except it would actually ruin it. So all I'm saying is if this movie, The Gift, kind of pops up and you have an opportunity to see it, the first half of the movie, you're going to think, seen it before, suspense thriller, weird guy, and then the movie takes a turn about 2/3 of the way in, and it's not the movie you thought you were watching, and it's awesome and highly recommend it. And Joel Edgerton, who I've loved, and he was in the remake actually of The Thing, which wasn't awful.
I didn't see it because I heard it was awful.
It wasn't. I'm not saying
I have it.
I wasn't saying it was good. I was saying it wasn't awful. There's a difference. So, highly recommend it for the twist. And I feel if I told you what it was, you would be mad at me. So I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
Too bad.
All right.
I have one more film I want to talk about, but I'm saving it for the end. So I want to hear what other movies we have on our plate.
Sure. The other movie I saw last week was Café Society, the new Woody Allen movie. And it's a Woody Allen movie. You kind of know what you're getting into. It's hard for me to get into Woody Allen movies these days because of all the allegations that came out involving him and his son. His daughter. I mean, his daughter.
Adopted daughter. That's a whole genre of porn. Seriously.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's a whole genre of porn, of stepdaughter porn, stepson porn with like the mom and then the stepson. That's a whole thing. So I don't know. That's
it's a slippery slope when it comes to his movies.
So usually, that bothers you watch them. I don't know. I mean, what do you do? Are we going to judge every single person now? Like, look, I mean, yes, it's detestable to me, but I don't even know if those things were proven. I've read so many articles back and forth.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm saying I've read about this and I'm confused as to whether it's, so
when it's an allegation, I'm hesitant. Just because I know people in my personal life have been accused of things, and I know for a fact they weren't true.
Right.
So, as a movie on its own, it's your typical
judge it without judging Woody Allen. Mm-hmm. So we don't derail into that.
It's your typical Woody Allen movie. The main character is played by
someone really awkward.
Yes.
Just like
Jesse Eisenberg is playing Woody Allen.
Well, what's weird is when you see other actors that end up being leads in Woody Allen movies.
Yeah.
They just act like Woody. They act like Woody Allen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dude.
And they have his tics. Does he ask them to do that, or do they just naturally start doing it?
I think he asks them because now, because of all the controversy, I think he doesn't act on camera that much anymore.
Right.
Like he was the narrator in this movie. But I think it's kind of like I want to be in this movie without being in this movie. So I think he directs the actors to kind of take up his quirks. Jesse Eisenberg does a terrible impression of Woody Allen. I cannot stand Jesse Eisenberg like in really anything he's done since Zombieland. I think he's such a boring actor. That's just
I think the Lex Luthor thing ruined it for me. I think that him in that that role just was awful. I mean, right? I mean,
I agree.
Obviously, the character of Lex Luthor has evolved from the comics, right? I mean, then suddenly he's got a robot power suit, and there's all sorts of different incarnations of Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
just as there are different incarnations,
the businessman, the president,
right? Just as there are incarnations of the Joker, is played by Cesar Romero or Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and I don't want to talk about Jared Leto, but the thing is this, is that people bring a different sort of, here's a different brushstroke, but that was completely the wrong take. I blame Zack Snyder for that more than anything. I think that was, I think Jesse Eisenberg would have actually made a good Joker if for Batman. I think that he would have been better in that role if they had Joker recurring in the DC universe.
You know, I'm content with just seeing Jesse Eisenberg fuck off, not being anything else.
All right.
But Steve Carell's in it.
Okay, all right.
And he's fantastic. The premise of the movie is Jesse Eisenberg is this kid from New York who comes out to LA and wants to break into the movie business. And Steve Carell is kind of this
break into the movie business.
Yep, and it's set in the 1930s. Steve Carell is his uncle, who is a famous producer that knows all the Hollywood stars and everything. There's this weird comedy of errors where Jesse Eisenberg falls in love with Kristen Stewart's character, who is Steve Carell's character's assistant, his secretary. Mm-hmm. And then he finds out that Steve Carell is actually having an affair with Kristen Stewart as well. So there's this love triangle. Kristen Stewart is somebody who, you know, most people know her from the Twilight movies, and I couldn't stand her in the one Twilight movie that I saw. But everything else I've seen her in, she's really good, and she's really great in this. She was definitely the highlight. Definitely. Her and Steve Carell were fantastic. It's a Woody Allen movie. Like, that's all I can say. If you're into Woody Allen, you're going to love it. I'm kind of about Woody Allen. Like, I loved Annie Hall, but that's about as far as my love for Woody Allen goes. Kind of like if you're going to go and get Thai food, you know what you're in for. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's exactly what it is.
Cool.
But one thing I did like is the cinematography. So many movies, especially nowadays from Sony Pictures and stuff, there's all these crazy shots because they want to push the ante. This was, it felt very cinematic, like old school cinematic with the slow dolly shots and everything. I feel like that's kind of a lost art, so it was nice to see that, but it didn't leave much of an impression on me.
Okay, all right. Well, you got anything else before we talk about the last film for the day?
That's it for me.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Now, here's what I'm curious about. Mm-hmm. It's before we talk about this last film that I'm really excited to discuss.
Sure.
I wonder if people liked. This is like the Avengers right now. We had our standalone movies. Yeah. We had our standalone podcasts.
Now we're back to fight Thanos.
Yeah. We're back to fight Thanos. But you did your podcast with Matt Kyle by yourself. Then I did my podcast live in front of an audience at Star Wars Celebration. I wonder whose was better. I wonder if we were to put it to a vote on the Film Threat Twitter.
God, the votes.
Whose podcast would people like more, do you think?
I don't know.
I actually don't know, and you know what? I don't care.
I don't think, either, to be honest.
I think I just hope that people keep listening because we're going to try out different fun things. This is the podcast where we get together, talk about film, and we're kind of experimenting, to find a format. But I just enjoy our film conversations, whether we're recording them or whether we're just hanging out in line at a movie, which spontaneously happens.
Yeah, not taking away anything from Matt, because hanging out with Matt was awesome, but I missed hanging out with you. It was a while.
I miss hanging out with me too.
Oh, you bastard! You bastard!
All right, let's talk. Okay, so this final film on this episode of the podcast. I was invited to an early screening of a movie. It's going to open in theaters, but it's actually airing on television on ABC Friday, April 28th. You need to see Let It Fall, 1982 to 1992. Let It Fall is a documentary directed by John Ridley, and as he pointed out at the screening, a team of editors who worked relentlessly on this project, and it documents all the events that led up to, and then it also documents what happened at the LA riots. And it's an incredible. I mean, I saw it at the African American Museum in downtown Los Angeles, and John Ridley spoke after the film. John Ridley, of course, screenwriter from 10 Years a Slave, and this is something that I really wanted to see when I got invited to. I was very excited to receive the invite because I lived through the riots. I was in the riots when all that stuff went down, and it was frightening. And getting the backstory about the city of Los Angeles, everything that led up to it. They made changes in the rules at the LAPD about how they conduct themselves that restricted certain choices. And what I liked about this documentary is it didn't vilify any one group. I mean, certainly it talked about the Rodney King beating. It talked about LAPD's different crackdowns and how they kind of overstepped their bounds. And it also talked about abuses of power in that realm. But it also showed from all sides. So there were bad cops. There were cops that really cared. I mean, there were citizens that stood up, people that could have been mistaken for rioters, but it was their neighborhood that was being attacked, and they were heroes. In particular, a group of men, black men, who stepped up and saved Reginald Denny, saved his life. I don't know if you remember, but when the LA riots broke out, Reginald Denny was a truck driver, white dude driving through a neighborhood, wrong time, wrong place. He got pulled out of his truck, was beaten, and a bunch of guys went down there and saved his life. And they talked to those men. So what I like is that it showed every single side of the equation. Mm-hmm. I think you can figure out for yourself who some of the villains were. And the footage that was shown is just unprecedented. You see the lives that it affected. I mean, so you'll see footage of people from back then, from like the 80s and whatnot, leading up to everything that happened. Then you see actually modern new interviews with people, and it's incredible, this documentary. So my experience of it, I remember when that footage came out of Rodney King being beaten. I remember being horrified by it. I remember thinking, like, those cops should go to jail. They should lose their jobs. And that's not how you treat any human. Yeah. That should not happen in my America. It was horrific. So when they got off, it's just like a gasp, but also like, this is, there's no justice in this stuff. In this kind of thing. I mean, they were pretty much set up to win. And I remember going to work that day. I was doing Film Threat magazine, actually, and went into the office. And I remember that we received a call because there were people driving into, and look, the offices were on Beverly Hills, not my choice. That's where the old offices for Film Threat were at the time when Larry Flint actually owned it, Film Threat. We were in these offices on palatial Wilshire Boulevard, and there were carloads of people just driving by cars and smashing in windows. Oh, wow. And the Beverly Hills Police Department called our building and said, "We can't guarantee your safety. You need to leave the building now." Wow. Now, at the time, my then wife was pregnant, and she worked in Santa Monica driving a 1965 Champagne Gold Ford Fairlane that I'd restored, and she had to drive from the west side. So I remember calling her, everyone got this notification all at once, which was such a stupid, I mean, it was, obviously they're looking out for people's safety, but they just said, go home. Mm-hmm. So everyone was going home at once. It's not like rush hour where, like, okay, there's a little bit of traffic at 7, then at 8, then at 9. No, everyone was told to go home at the same time. At that time, I was driving a motorcycle to work because it was cheap. I wasn't trying to be cool. It was less expensive to own a car and a motorcycle than it was to own 2 cars, right?
It still is pretty much.
Well, it still is, yes. I think I had this classic bike, a 72 Triumph Daytona 500, that I think I paid $3-4 a week for gas, and then rarely, if ever, paid for parking, and then my insurance was $100 a year. So I'm riding in this motorcycle and I'm going between the traffic. Finally, there were so many people breaking laws. Everyone is told to go home, and people were panicking. So everyone on the streets of LA, they were just running red lights. There were people running in the streets. There were cars driving up on side. I just was like, forget it. I took my motorcycle and I drove on the sidewalk back home to my place off Melrose Avenue at the time. And then my then wife, like, she she got home a couple hours later. We all didn't have cell phones back then. This is 90.
God.
This is May of 92.
Yeah.
No, excuse me, late April 92.
April 26th.
Right. Yeah. So
I only know that because of the Sublime song.
Right. Well, it took place. The riots took place about 4 days. It was really took 4 days for it to settle down finally. But I remember just sitting in my home. There were friends on the roof with guns.
Oh wow!
I remember just sitting and watching, going, I cannot believe this is a city I had just moved to. I moved to LA in '89, and I'm watching it burn. When I got home, my friend Glenn Barr, the illustrator, if you look up Glenn Barr, 2 N's, 2 R's, Glenn Barr, you know who he is, and he would do artwork for Film Thread at the time. He was working on the Ren and Stimpy show doing backgrounds, and lived in the back guest house of the duplex that my then wife and I lived in. And Glenn would fly home once a month to visit his wife, and his wife would fly in to see him, and he needed to go to the airport that night.
Oh.
So Glenn came home from Spumco and, hey, I need a ride to the airport. And I was like, well, okay, I'll give you a ride. So after my wife came home with the car, we got in the car, and I took a buddy of mine, Richard Purcell, who also worked as a writer at Spumco. We got in the car, me, Richard, and Glenn Barr, and drove to the airport and brought my camera, and we were filming footage. We drove by this computer store that was on, I believe it was Highland Avenue, just south of Melrose. And there were guys they had bandanas around their faces, kind of like a cowboy. And I'm like, oh, wow. It was to hide their identity. And they had smashed open this computer store and this camera store, and they were just going in and just taking everything. They were just looting everything. And this is just blocks from where I lived. So we drove Glenn home before dusk. We're driving home, and the thing that struck me most is we're coming back on the 10 freeway. Now this sounds like an episode of The Californians. I was taking the 10 East. I didn't mean to derail talking about this movie by talking about my own personal experience of the riots.
I don't think,
but it's why seeing this documentary was so important to me.
Yeah,
because I really wanted to see an inside view of that, and I wanted to see, and also I trust John Ridley as a filmmaker, because John Ridley started as a critic, and I think some of the best filmmakers, began their careers writing about film and dissecting film and understanding film, and I used to watch his movie review show. So I'm driving back on the 10 freeway, and just overlook. There's one part where on some overpass, and I could see kind of this vantage point view of LA, fires everywhere. I mean, and I'm no stranger to that, because on Devil's Night in Detroit, there are Detroit fires. Before I left Detroit in the 80s, Devil's Night was a thing. It was the time where a lot of businesses that weren't doing too well would burn down their warehouses. Mm-hmm. That sort of became that, but Devil's Night, the night before Halloween, was a night where you would go out and play pranks on people. That's at least what we did as kids. But what it turned into was an opportunity for hooligans in Detroit to burn down buildings.
Was that before or after The Crow? Because I know they do that in The Crow. The Crow takes place in Detroit.
You know what? No, that was before.
Okay.
It was definitely before. But so I was no stranger to it, but it was just shocking. Like, oh my God, the city is tearing itself apart. Mm. So the documentary does an incredible job of showing you the events that led up to this, these ignored communities, these oppressed communities of, let's face it, for the most part, African-American citizens who were oppressed by the LAPD and who overreached in their powers, and it felt that they got no justice, had no recourse, and there's no incentive for them to be law-abiding citizens. It really is a societal breakdown. And what I love about the documentary is the fact that it doesn't just talk about the riots. Fully the first half of the documentary is just to get you to the riots in 1992. Mm-hmm. 10 years of Los Angeles history that talks about other events that led to, there was the event, the woman's name escapes me, I believe it was a Korean grocer who killed a 15-year-old girl over orange juice. She got in a fight. I mean, she had like orange juice in her backpack. And it wasn't clear whether she forgot it or she was going to buy it. And she had the orange juice and they were just playing video games in this store and got in a fight. The woman accused her of stealing it. She just hadn't purchased it yet. She was in the store. She hadn't left. And
it was Latasha Harlan.
Latasha Harlan, yeah. So, and you can look all this up. And she was killed and the woman really got off. I mean, it's so what the documentary does a great job of is laying the groundwork for this is why the riots happened, not just the riots happened. And then here are aspects, here are heroes you did not know about that didn't get, people know Rodney King, people know, Reginald Denny and some of these other names, but the other people that they talk to in the documentary, it's fascinating and you can see it. Friday, April 28th on ABC. I know I'm sounding like I'm doing a plug, but
no,
I think it's such an important documentary, especially based on our politically charged environment, which I know, look, I don't want to derail the Film Threat podcast by talking about politics. At some point when it presents itself, it'll organically come up in conversation. But this is, it's a big part of my history of being in the city. And it's a big part of just LA history and just American history in general. I mean, it's a documentary that you need to see. So I'm so glad that's actually airing on television, right? I mean, network television. I wonder if they'll edit it. I'm not sure. I think the version that we saw was a little over 2 hours. I'm pretty sure they're going to edit because there are some graphic scenes in it. I mean, scenes where, it was uncomfortable at that screening, people gasping at some of the footage that was revealed. But I think you need to see the gruesome nature of some of the things that occurred that led to the anger in the community in the inner city and why they're pissed off. And I do like that. Now, what was interesting, that speech that Rodney King gives where he says, "Can't we all get along?" That was also right outside the building where I worked.
Oh, wow.
At 9100 Wilshire Boulevard was where the Film Threat offices were at the time in 92, owned by then Larry Flint Publications. Yes, that's a story for another time. That's a story that'll be told in the Film Threat documentary is all of that stuff. And the book that I'm working on slowly but surely, the Film Threat Sucks book and documentary. But I would run into those lawyers. The building was weird because they had it was all the non-adult, they used to call them men's sophisticates magazines was Film Threat and other magazines like PC Laptop and Hot Boat and BBW and there was some maternity magazine. And there were just like all these magazines that had nothing to do with adult material were all in a different building from Larry Flint's building, this in 92. So the attorneys that represented Rodney King were in that building, so he'd be there. And that speech he gives, "Can't we all just get along?" was right outside. Oh my God, there they are. And I would see going up and down in the elevator, I saw Magic Johnson, I saw Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. The lawyers that represented them were there. So there was always some weird sort of strange celebrity parade in that building in the early 90s, specifically because of those high-powered attorneys. So we'd run into people in the elevator. It was interesting. But I just implore everyone to see this documentary. I hope that it's available. I hope they make it available just on the ABC app, so it's not something you have to tune in for or DVR. Or if you're listening to this podcast and it's Saturday, April 29th, and which most of you probably are, and you missed it, but you need to seek it out. Let It Fall, 1982 to 1992. And if you live in LA, you're a resident, you can go down to the African American Museum in downtown Los Angeles, and you can see there is an exhibit about the LA riots, and there are artifacts there. I met a guy who was. I'll post these photos on the Film Threat feed. Twitter feed. But I met this guy who was a Iraqi war vet who just gotten back from the war a couple months, and then the riots broke out. He was wearing a peace signed T-shirt, and he was actually on the cover of Newsweek, and he was at the exhibit. So the exhibit just walks you through like the history of LA, other riots that occurred, artifacts from the time, newspaper clippings, video footage is playing. For anyone that's an LA resident, or even just look, if you're an American, I encourage you to check out this exhibit in the museum. And you know, it's weird now. I'm old enough now that I've actually lived through some history, and that's something. The LA riots is something, you know, I'll never forget. Just how the city kind of had to put itself back together, you know. And I think after something like that, that's so tragic, you know, people do have to, communities have to come together. There has to be understanding.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And at the time, we couldn't unfriend people because there was no Facebook.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Hey, Anthony, you're on Twitter at This Game Cheats.
That's right.
And you can find me at that Chris Gore or at Film Threat. And check out the website every day, filmthreat.com. There's a new piece of content every day. You're going to read about movies you would not read about on some of those other sites. We continue to build and expand the website. I appreciate your patience with all of that. And one last thing. Let's get out of here.